The NBA season is a few months away, but there are still tons of sports for you to get in the game and make your next bet with Sports Interaction. Bet before the game or live and play on all of your favorite teams' matchups. Head to sportsinteraction.com/SDPN or download the app to get started. 19 plus, please play responsibly. Welcome to SDPN's off-season mini-series, The Leap, where I sit down with media members from across the NBA to discuss some of the up-and-coming players in the league that could take that next step in their careers. We discuss 6 players across 6 different teams, all with different styles and positions, in hopes of understanding what makes their development unique. Today, I want to take a look at Raptors big man Precious Achiuwa, entering his 4th year in the NBA with the physical tools to be an all-defense level player, an elite athlete who, at his best, could be a dominant interior presence. But he's been dealing with a lot of identity crisis, not sure what position he actually wants to play and what role best suits him. It's natural for a player who has shown flashes of shooting and creation to wonder what they will eventually become at their best. So the question is, how will Achiuwa take that leap? What's going on, y'all? Welcome to The Leap. This is sort of an off-season series that I'm doing to discuss a bunch of different players in the NBA, around the NBA, that might be ready to take that next leap in their careers, whether it is from, non-role player to a role player, or from role player to star, or star to all-star. There's going to be discussions about multiple different types of players. Today, we're here joined by Mr. Pull-Up Tre himself, Trevon Heath, co-host. Is it host or co-host of
co-host? Co-host. A sidekick, I like to say, actually.
Sidekick. Okay, Guillermo of the Pull-Up. No, I'm just kidding. Co-host of the Pull-Up Tre podcast on Raptors Republic. Look, I wanted to bring you on to talk about Precious because he's had a very interesting first couple of seasons in Toronto. I think there was a lot of promise in his first year in Toronto, especially after the All-Star break. He showed, some developments when it comes to shooting touch. And then in year 2, it felt like a mixed bag. You never got what you wanted to. He was injured there for, I believe, December and a bit of January, or November and December. And he never really got off to the right start. So I guess my first question to you is, how would you contextualize the first 2 seasons for Precious in Toronto?
I would say mixed bag. The first season, I would say overall would be a success just because he finished on such a high. Mm-hmm. He was shooting at above average 3-point clip, and that opened up everything for his game. I think for him, it's being able to, in the context of the Raptors, clearly, because there's a logjam of several forwards, he's going to have to be able to hit shots, be able to put the ball on the floor, and then create rim pressure from that, which is lacking from most of their team. Yeah. And I think that's why you saw his minutes go down. They just simply couldn't support him being on the floor with the lack of shooting that they had. And now with even Fred VanVleet gone, it's a bit interesting how that will kind of coincide this season.
So I feel like with the Raptors, and just discussing what some of these prospects look like in general next season, there's a with Pascal and there's a without Pascal scenario, yes. Right? How does Precious's season look if Pascal returns? And then if you want to answer how his next season might look without Pascal, with more opportunity.
Yeah. In terms of like pathway to success, I think the with Pascal timeline, it's they're small ball 5 with an OG or Scotty led lineup. Mm-hmm. With Jakob, I don't see him being able to get enough looks at the rim to warrant him being on the floor. Although the defense would be awesome, he's probably a top 3 defender on the team, one of probably the best athlete on the team as well. He isn't able to offer enough shooting in order for him to be on the floor. But in those small ball lineups where they gotta get back to that vision 6'9", Precious can offer resistance defensively. And then also, if he's able to shoot, he doesn't need to be a 37% 3-point shooter like he shot the first season. But if he's able to offer some verticality by getting to the rim, catching lobs, rolling off of Scotty, and becoming a better roller and screener in general, he'll be able to be used in a lot of what Scotty's growth will be,
Yeah.
as well as being able to show flashes in himself, because he'll be going against other fives where he has an incredible speed and athletic advantage, and he'll be able to use some of that dribbling skill to hopefully score and increase his averages.
Yeah.
Timeline without Pascal, I think you see a larger minute increase, obviously. I think there isn't a pathway to necessarily start. I think Scotty obviously slides to the 4 with Jakob to the 5, but I could see a potential scenario where he is actually closing games if he's finishing well, if he's playing well. The finishing has improved from Precious. I think that was the one big win from last season.
Yep.
And also in certain lineups, Jakob isn't necessarily needed. Most teams in the league have smaller bigs. And if he's able to become a better roller and they're going in these smaller lineups where they're switching everything, I think that's a pathway to him getting more minutes, becoming a 25, 26 a minute player. And obviously, if they make the playoffs, being in that playoff rotation and being a big force in it.
Yeah, there were a couple points you hit on that I found really interesting. The at rim finishing, you were 100% right on. He shot 72% at the rim last year. His career high before that, although it's been only 3 years, was 62%. And like for a guy his size, that is such a massive thing to improve on, being able to be a consistent rim finisher. I'm gonna throw out these numbers at you just to kind of hear what you're saying, and I want to contextualize it based on like what role he actually wants to play, like what he wants to do as a player. So, okay, 0.58 in ISOs, 0.91 in transition, 1.09 as the pick and roll man, 0.94 on post ups, 0.92 on spot ups, 0.8 on DHOs, 1.25 off of cuts. So it shows that he's an incredible off-ball mover, great roll man, great dive man to the basket. He can be this big man for you. But is that the role he wants to play is the question. Me and you were both there. We heard a story about him in Memphis, right? When he went to the coaches in Memphis, and they were telling him, oh, you got to roll to the basket, you got to be this big man, this rim protector for us. Yep. And he's like, have you guys heard of Kevin Durant? I want to play like KD. And he showed them Kevin Durant highlights. So where do you think he is in terms of what role he wants to play next season? And like just in general, what does he envision for himself and his career?
Yeah, I think with Fred being gone, most of the Raptors are thinking my usage is going to get up. I'm going to have more chances with the ball. And obviously for Precious, in terms of like immediate impact, him idolizing or playing a game similar to like Robert Williams, Jalen Duren, those guys who are vertical spacers, offer some passing, athletic cutter, that will lead to like immediate success. But in order for him to get paid, the guys that really get paid are those shot creators. He's shown that he wants to dribble the ball. Nick Nurse has given pretty much everyone the freedom in his first 2 seasons to, if you grab the rebound, be able to actually create shots. And that's kind of where the Raptors, you can see why they're one of the highest ISO teams in the past couple of years. But I think he sees himself as a wing. And I think in a perfect world, he probably thinks he can move up in the rotation if he offers more shooting, because that allows him to play with OG and Scotty and slot into the lineup where most people think that's going to be Gary or Otto Porter or Grady Dick.
Yeah. Do you think there's a way to blend that? It like kind of get the best of both worlds in the sense that he can be your quote unquote small ball 5, rim rolling big guy who can protect the basket for you, but then on the other side also maybe show some pop off the bounce, be able to create a little bit for himself. Do you think there's a way to, especially with them introducing new head coach Darko Rajakovic, who is 0.5 offense, everything like that? We've talked about it here on the channel, but like, do you think there's a way to potentially blend that so you keep both sides sort of satisfied?
I think we've already kind of seen it. It's the second half of his first season. When Pascal came back from injury, his usage shot up, Fred's went down, and most of Precious's offense or success was spot up shooting and then being able to attack a closeout and then use his dribbling athleticism and size to score from there. If he improves, like I said, if he improves his ability as a roller, he's the most athletic person that on the team. But oftentimes he takes the wrong path, and you see, like, we laugh about all the time, where he bumps into Pascal, he'll bump into Fred in the same path of where they're trying to get to the rim. If he improves that and his actual lob threat, it allows him to be on the floor a lot more and more useful. And we can bring down the spot attempts a little down, where he's can be on the floor and have more immediate success, and he's not reliant on a swing skill.
Yeah. How do you feel about his touch? Because like we just talked about, like he's improved as a rim finisher, but he's not necessarily Nikola Jokic in terms of his touch, but he's also not Christian Koloko with his touch. You know what I mean? Like where do you sit on his touch and feel for the game?
I think his touch it's improving. I wouldn't say it's at a point where it's good now.
Yeah.
He, in terms of his finishing, most of it are dunks. He's cutting off of the gravity that Pascal's created. Pascal's forced a rotation. He's super athletic. He can cut down, get the ball, dunk. Mm-hmm. Where he needs to improve his actual touch will be if he's able to get a floater into his game, where teams now, especially this season, aren't going to rotate the same way they have the past 2 seasons. So when he gets the ball off of these closeout, I'm confident he's going to be able to beat that first man most of the time. Yeah. Sometimes even if they sag off, just that's how athletic he is. But getting fully to the rim, we saw that with Pascal even next to Jakob, it's a challenge because teams are packing the paint. If he can then change that into a floater and have some success with it, it makes him a more useful player, and then also forces the defense to step up, and then he can utilize some of his passing. And I think that's where the Raptors are kind of going to have to succeed. Their players are going to have high feel and be able to win in some of the very little things in order to have like an average offense this season.
What's your realistic expectation for what Precious looks like offensively in his quote unquote prime? Like, not next season, but 3-4 seasons from now. How does he look? What is the archetype? What is the type of player he looks like 4 years down the road offensively?
Offensively, I think a lot of it is him being a high level off ball player. That's being one of the most athletic bigs in the league who can dunk everything at the rim, jump, kill on the offensive glass. And then I think I'm probably higher than most on his passing feel. Although the numbers don't show, I think he's going to be able to execute a dump off pass. And teams, I think at a certain level, teams are going to know we need to rotate if he's getting to the rim, and he's going to be able to execute that dump off pass. And that's a Koloko, or if any other big on the team, where he'll be able to help them finish a much easier at the rim because of the force that he causes, similar to like a OG, for example. We saw that this season where he added that to his game, and it really helped the team flow offensively.
Yeah, it's funny you brought up OG because some of the similarities outside of the shooting, because OG is just such a more well-rounded shooter, they have the same flaws in the sense that OG has a balance issue when he's driving the ball, when he's attacking, right? And that's a hurdle he has to go through. Precious sort of has this thing where he might bounce around, not know positionally where he needs to be, or even like fumble the ball at times. You know, his handle is good for his size, but it's not elite. Yeah. And I wonder how they can counteract that offensively. The off-ball stuff you mentioned is spot on. I think, from a catch and shoot perspective, attacking closeouts, attacking a tilted defense, that's the way those types of players are going to thrive offensively. I wonder if you think defense can also be a calling card of Precious's, similar to OG, and where you stand on him as a defensive player.
Yeah. Defensively, I think he can be all NBA. You
mean all defense, right?
All defense, my fault.
I'm like, okay, all NBA Precious. I like it.
Yeah, he could be all defense. He's, to this day, I think he's probably regressed somewhat as a defender last season, but he also was coming back from injury and never really got back into the flow of the season. Mm-hmm. But he's a great rebounder. He's able to offer some resistance as a help side defender. I think best case scenario for him is probably being that roaming defensive four, similar to what Pascal does, offering elite perimeter defense, being able to switch onto guards and then coming in on the weak side and being able to block shots, offer resistance, and then also rebound. Like when you see Precious's numbers, the team rebounds much better when he's on the floor.
Yep.
So I think the ideal situation is him being next to another big like a Jakob or another rim protector where he's able to weaponize his athleticism around the floor where he can create chaos.
I love that. And I think that's where he should really hang his hat on. And if he wants to make that next contract, make it a good contract. We've seen it with guys like OG. They're not, I mean, yes, you are technically getting rewarded for the shooting, for the ability to spot up and hit and knock down shots, but it's also the defensive end of the ball where you're getting most of your money. And I think Precious, like that is a very clear route for him to get a nice contract moving forward with the Raptors. I wonder if you believe in it. Like, do you this is all good to talk about and good to see, but do you think everything we've sort of discussed when it comes to Precious, is it tangible knowing where the Raptors are at, knowing that Precious is arguably their second most important prospect, maybe Grady is now, but like he's one of their massive, swing factors here for the next couple of years. Do you believe in that? Like, do you think he has the chance to get to that next level?
I think on the Raptors, it would be very difficult just because of the logjam that's currently on the team, like Pascal, Scotty, Jakob. But I think on another team where there's adequate playmakers and guys who are tilting defenses, I think he can do that 100%. Whether he wants to do the things that would probably get him paid the most is a different question. But we've already seen him do stuff at a high level, and he played well in that playoff series as well and offered resistance against Joel Embiid to some degree. So I think he can do it. I think it's just a matter of whether he wants to and where he sees his skill set rounding into.
You know what would have been funny? I feel like not similar to Obi Toppin, but if Precious was on the Pacers, would thrive, would absolutely work 100%. Well. Just a lot of shooting, a lot of ball handling. He's constantly going to be attacking a tilted defense. Like that type of situation makes him thrive a lot more. Do you envision a scenario in Toronto where he is their next starting center, post Jakob? Maybe if Jakob gets traded into his contract, who knows? But do you see that being a realistic scenario of him being their starting five? No,
I don't think so. I think he's much better as a four just because of he doesn't have those guys who are those small centers who can play 82 games a year are those guys who have like abnormal length, like Bam, Draymond, and just incredible instincts in order to meet bigs early. With Precious, the Raptors had to play a style that was more aggressive and had to really deter people from getting to the rim, because once the Raptors defense was really beat, they were letting in free lays at the rim, and he didn't have the size to offer the resistance that Jakob did, which is why they made that trade.
Right. I think I was going into last season expecting a Precious leap. I think looking at like the post All-Star break numbers, people expected the shooting to translate even more. We say development isn't linear, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
Do you think we see a better Precious Achiuwa next season?
I think so. I think with the offense that Darko wants to get into, Precious making less decisions and that 0.5 type offense where he's grabbing the ball and going. And if they pair him with Scotty off of the bench, I could see him excelling a bit more. But it'll lead to wins, maybe not. But him personally, I could see his numbers going up if he's given the opportunity to expand his role on the bench.
Big year for him, man. Contract extensions coming up. It's going to be a big year for him just in general for his career. There are always tons of flashes when it comes to Precious Achiuwa throughout the season. We've seen it, and it's been tantalizing enough for guys like me and you to still, believe in him and have faith in him eventually becoming a legitimate rotation player, potentially, fringe all defense type guy. Who knows, right? Yeah, Trey, appreciate you, man. Thank you very much for jumping on. This was a quick little discussion about Precious Achiuwa. Appreciate you guys tapping into the Leap. We got more players to discuss as we go through this series in August and, of course, the next NBA season. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.